Welcome back to the Admin Society podcast. If you're new here, my name is Erica Chandler, and this week we are going to be diving into the good practices of hiring a tattoo assistant. Throughout this video, I'm going to teach you the concept of hiring in a different manner that's going to help organize and outline a way for you to be able to accomplish your goals as a tattoo artist, but also to help find someone that can take over for you so you can get back to what you love. When it comes to hiring, some things can get a little complicated, especially when you're in the market and looking for someone, because at the end of the day, as a tattoo artist, you've never been really taught the proper hiring practices that can help you find good people. You've either been taught how to look for someone that may look the part or just hiring someone that you know that may not really have any skills that actually can help. But I'm hopeful with this episode that you'll be able to take away from a lot of information that I'm about ready to give you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right on in. So just for clarification, the question, what is a tattoo assistant? For those that you do not know, this is somebody that a tattoo artist hires when they don't have an apprentice or they don't want to invest their time into an apprentice. This position is not uncommon because a lot of tattoo artists hire maybe a spouse, a girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, family member, friend, client, or just someone in their community or a supporter. So these tattoo assistants, they can help you with clients, they can help you with emails, phone calls, scheduling appointments, taking deposits. If you're looking to upgrade your booking process into maybe a booking software or so on. There's a lot of wide range of things that a tattoo assistant can help you with, excluding taxes and accounting, because you really need a professional for that. When it comes to this, anytime a tattoo artist approaches me and asks me, okay, what do I have to do in order to be able to find someone to work for me? So one of the things I always ask is, what is your number one goal when it comes to hiring an assistant? A lot of the times, tattoo artists are going to say, well, I'd love to get back to the roots of just tattooing. I don't want to have to deal with anything. That's 9 times out of 10 what a tattoo artist says that they want to do. Or it could be they want to step into a leadership role. However, before you can get to the actual hiring process, there's a few things that you actually need to do beforehand. One thing that I highly recommend is get specific on your certain policies, because if you're going to have a tattoo assistant and your goal is to get back to tattooing, you essentially need a tattoo assistant that can take over for you. And what do I mean by that? Act as a manager, someone that can take the bull by the horns and take care of situations, handle house calls, enforcing policies, and so on. So if you want an assistant to take over, you really need to get specific on your policies. And this could be, do you charge a consultation fee? What are your rules when it comes to scheduling appointments? Do you have a deposit that you require? Do you have a no-show fee if someone pulls a no-show, and so on? So these policies are going to be put in place, and that can help your assistant, because the more that they know, the more that they can help you in the process. Because if you want to get back to tattooing, they need to know this, so that way they can go ahead and take charge and take care of it without having to interfere with your tattoo time with your existing clients in a chair. The second thing is kind of organize what this position is going to look like for you when it comes to certain things you want them to do. So start writing a list of things that you have on your plate that you don't want to deal with. And these could be your emails, they could be phone calls, they could be working the counter, they could be filing and organizing your client base. This could be anything. Write down a list of what you don't want to do. And that's essentially, those list of tasks are essentially going to create a position for your tattoo assistant to take over. Now, another one is budgeting. Now, later on in this video, I'm actually going to talk about the 3 categories of how to pay your tattoo assistant, but you need to start being aware in budgeting that this is going to be a weekly expense or a bi-weekly expense, however you decide to pay your assistant, but you really need to start budgeting what you think that you can afford when it comes to an assistant. You also need to iron out how many hours a week do you think that you would need your tattoo assistant to work? Because it can be 20 hours, it could be 40 hours. It does not have to be full time. It can be part time. You can approach this as someone that maybe have a full time job and it may be a side hustle type of thing where they can just earn some extra money on the fly each week. So depending on how you approach it, you need to iron out how many hours a week do you think that you would need. Now, one thing that I recommend is that if you're going to do someone part-time, I would do 15 to 20 hours per week. These hours, just so that way your assistant can grasp hold of everything, you might want to start small, and then you two can talk about extending hours if you need to. You also need to iron out if you own a shop, is this assistant going to be helping other artists around your shop, or are they just helping you? And the same with single artists. If you work in a shop, but you're responsible only for your stuff, you need to iron out what that is going to look like for you. Are they going to be working in person with you? Do you are you going to have an office for them to work out of? If not, this position, just so you guys are aware, can fully be done at home as long as you equip them with what they need in order to be able to help your clients. And that means email sign-ons, calendars, booking software that you use, intake forms that you use to get clients to contact you. So whatever you use to get clients in the door, as long as your tattoo assistant has access to that, they will be able to be fully equipped to do this at home. So now that we have ironed out a lot of the things that you would need to prepare for before you actually start hiring, let's talk about how you are going to attract your tattoo assistant. A lot of the times, the more popularity it's becoming is to start taking it to social media like Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, or however you have your business, is usually the route that a lot of people take, a lot of tattoo artists take when they are looking for a tattoo assistant, is they will make a post on social media. Now, I do not recommend saying looking for a tattoo assistant. This is not an apprenticeship. Social media experience is a plus. When it comes to that type of posting, I do not recommend it because you're not exactly educating your community on exactly what a tattoo assistant is, what it does for your shop, and what does the position look like. Because it's a very vague job posting, and you're more than likely going to get people to apply with the intentions and hoping that they are going to get an apprenticeship out of it. And if that's not what you want, then you need to take more time and effort to put into this post to really educate your clients on the process. Now, to really educate your community on what this looks like for you. So one thing, an example for this is I'm going to include this as a bonus. If you didn't catch it from last week, I included it there, but I'll also include it here. I'm going to have a mock-up social media post for you that you can use, and it's easily accessible at the moment that this episode airs. So when it comes to this social media post, one of the things that you need to outline is, what does this tattoo assistant position mean for your shop? It can go along the lines of, this assistant is going to work full-time or part-time for our shop. They're going to be solely responsible for appointments, emails, phone calls, client organization, and etc. What does that look like for you? Then the second thing that you're going to need to outline is the experience of what you're wanting. Now, keep in mind that the likelihood that you're going to find someone that has experience in this industry is going to be next to nil, because tattoo assistants that are professionals like LLCs are not saturated enough yet. So you would need to look for certain specific traits of people that know what they're doing in other industries where their skills can be transferred over into this industry. And what I mean by that is, if you have someone that knows how to talk with clients, knows how to do emails, scheduling, has had previous experience running an office or organization, or knowing how to be a manager, knowing how to enforce policies and so on, all of the skills right there can be transferred into another industry. So some of these skills that I recommend for you to list when you're looking for a tattoo assistant is, you would need leadership qualities, or manager material. So this is someone that's going to take charge. I would also recommend someone that can keep ahead of deadlines and not procrastinate. Someone that can hold you accountable. And what I mean by that, for example, let's say on the schedule, you've got a client that's really wanting to get a tattoo on your day off, but you are trying to bend back and forth whether or not you want to do it. Your assistant can be there to hold you accountable and say, no, this is the schedule that you want me to enforce. I'm not allowing you to do this on your personal time off if it's not something that's important to you. If you're doing it just to people please, then you want an assistant that's going to hold you accountable. Especially also another example of this is getting your convention paperwork turned in on time so you have a booth when you go to travel for tattoo conventions, if that's something that you want to do. You also need someone that's going to be better at you at computers. Now, this is no rag on anybody. What the rule of thumb when it comes to hiring someone is the things that you are not good at, you want to hire someone that is good at those things. So if you are not good at social media, you need someone that's going to be great at social media. If you're not good with computers, you need someone that's going to be amazing at computers. If you're not good at talking with customers, you need someone that's going to be good at customer service. Hire someone that's going to be better than you at certain things over what you're good at. Also, with this post, you can include a disclaimer. This position is not an apprenticeship. Anyone that applies with the intentions of an apprenticeship, their application is going to be disqualified. Now, when it comes to people applying, you need to make it very quick and easy and painless as possible. If you have people jump through hoops, I will tell you, for example, on Indeed, when I used to be a recruiter full time, a lot of people skipped through job postings if it had way too many steps. If you know that people have a short attention span on social media, the same rule applies to in your emails, and the same rule applies when it comes to applying to jobs. So make it as simple as possible. One thing that I would recommend is informing your community how to apply. I wouldn't recommend telling them just to send you an email, because if you need necessary information, they could send you the bare minimum, like a resume, and then that's it. And that can just create more work for yourself. So one thing that I would recommend is if you don't have access to forms, you can use Google Forms or JotForm. They're both free that you can use, and you can make a list of questions of anything and everything that you would need to know about that assistant to be able to consider them for the position. So with that, you only have to answer the questions once, and then you can pre-screen them and look at their name and all their information without even having to contact them and ask them for additional information. One thing that I would recommend for you to do is, if you want a resume instead of a list of questions, don't have them post a resume and then ask the same exact questions about their experience on a form. So you need to pick one or the other and decide which one was going to be a lot easier for you to be able to digest and pre-screen as quick as possible. Because if you're opening a position, one thing you also have to keep in mind is the quickness and the timeliness of responding. Because if you have applicants that are actively looking for a job, they're missing a paycheck or they need a paycheck. So if you don't get in contact with them within the next day or so, they are already moving on to the next thing. So if you are waiting a week to be able to get back to them, or if you're waiting until all the applicants have come through, you're going to miss your shot. So the moment that you have an application come through, I would pre-screen it, take a day to pre-screen it and decide whether or not you want to move forward. And then the next day I would send either an acceptance email where you're moving forward or a rejection email. But I would not wait far in between, because you're going to miss out on some people that can potentially be an amazing asset to your business. There's a missing gap when it comes to interviewing. A lot of people, in my experience, a lot of managers, they like to take their time and they like to extend interviews out to 2 and 3 interviews. Unless it's specifically needed, it's not necessary to put your applicants and candidates through 2 to 3 additional interviews, because that's just a big waste of time. Because like I said, people are there to try to get a new job as quick as possible. They could be leaving a hostile environment. They could be leaving a place that hardly has any pay. And or they could just be wanting to get out as soon as possible. So if you're extending out the interview process to 2 or 3, you're going to get people that are losing interest, and you do not want that. Trust me. I can't tell you how many times I've had a manager pick out a person for me to go ahead and screen and interview, and then I would submit them back to the manager and say, these are the qualified people, and the manager doesn't call them until a week later, and then like maybe 2% of those people reply, and there's 2 to 3 additional interviews with it. And it's not necessary. And it's just a big waste of time, especially when you're not serious and you already know that you're going to end up rejecting this person. So it's best not to waste your time and the candidate's time and not push out any farther than you need to. One thing that I would recommend is don't just interview and hire the very first candidate that you see, because it's the same thing as dating. When you know that they are the one, and you're going to want to hire them immediately. If you just hire the first person that you see, then you may not be doing your due diligence, and this person might not even work out, and then you're back to square one. After the interview process, this is where you're also going to iron out a few details. Now, when it comes to this, you're also going to have to provide some sort of offer letter. Now, of course, this isn't a requirement, but if you want a good qualified assistant to work for you, you're going to have to take it to the route of, offering the position, listing the salary, listing the hours, what kind of benefits that you offer, if any of your job responsibilities that you're wanting them to do. This is going to be essentially going to outline what you're hiring them for, how much, how many hours, how much benefits, and so on. And this is a copy that you will be able to keep in your records, and it's a copy that you can give your new tattoo assistant so they can keep in theirs. I know if you're listening and you think, okay, this is a little barbaric, we're in the tattoo industry, but at the same time, when you step into being a boss, you're not just an artist anymore. You're responsible for paying a whole new employee that needs to feed their family or be able to pay their bills. So it has to be done in a clean way that's going to cover your butt, but also help your tattoo assistant and make a position or make a decision in your establishment. Just because you can't see what they're applying for doesn't mean there's other people that may be after them. So the more that you can put forth the effort to present to your potential tattoo assistant, the better off you'll be. This brings up how to specifically interview. So when you're interviewing candidates, you need to act interested in their experience. So, you can ask a question that's along the lines of, okay, this is the position of what we're looking for. I need a manager to do X, Y, and Z. I need someone that can hold me accountable. I need someone to enforce my schedule. I need this and this. What kind of experience do you have in your previous job that is similar to what I'm currently looking for? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or something along the lines of, why are you looking for a new position? Or make it about them. Don't just make it about what you need, make it about them. Get them excited to answer you. Get them excited and be comfortable with answering you. Allow and give them room to ask questions about this position. Some of them might even ask, have you ever had a tattoo assistant before? So you need to be honest and authentic with them and say, whatever your answer may be, but allow them time to answer questions of their own, because everyone's going to have their own questions, just like you did if you were looking for a new tattoo shop to work for. The things that I also would consider is that when you are interviewing this client, you need to make sure that you let them know, hey, I want to let you know that between interviews and my tattoo schedule, it may take a couple days for me to get back to you. Just go ahead and look for my email, and I will let you know whether or not we are going to move forward or if we're going to part ways. So that way they are more than willing and understanding and more than willing to wait for you to give them an email. Once you have decided on a candidate, the next thing is going to be trying to figure out the pay. I have actually created a pay scale that's divided in 3 separate ways, and it depends on the experience of your assistant. So the first category is an entry-level assistant. These people are more so that don't really have experience working in an office. They may know a little bit about customer service, or they can do emails and scheduling, but anything extensive outside of that, they don't know, but they are coachable and willing to do what it takes to learn the lingo of the tattoo shop. Those people are going to be more so of like an entry level person, maybe someone that's trying to get into the industry. And I would recommend paying them no less than $15 an hour. However, if you are listening outside of the US, you will need to Google the average salary when it comes to where you live. And the same thing if you're living in the United States, because of certain cost of living in each state, you'll need to Google as well the average salary of a tattoo assistant in your area. And this goes for the last 2 categories as well. The second one is going to be your more experienced assistants. These are going to be people that have experience being an assistant. In the corporate world, it's called administrative assistant. These people know how to run an office. They know how to organize files. They know how to do emails and phone calls and scheduling and so on. Like, they know how to be a manager. So these people are going to be ones that have worked in other industries, and their skills and assets of what they know can be transferred over, and you can utilize them in your tattoo business. So I would recommend, usually the pay scale for them is between $17 and $24 an hour. The next one after that is going to be like your more professional assistant. These are going to be more of the proper term for is a virtual assistant, someone that has their own LLC and offers a specialized service that you can outsource to, and they can charge anywhere between $25 an hour to $50 an hour plus. They have their own LLC, they offer the service, you pay them, and that's the end of it. When it comes to the first 2, one thing you need to also keep in mind is how you are going to pay them. The first one is through payroll. If you live in the United States, you're going to need to look up the qualifying documents and what kind of accounts you need to sign up for to do effective payroll, which is federal insurance, state insurance, city, if it qualifies, any sort of Social Security, Medicaid, all of those files that you will need to, all of that documentation that you will need to look up in your state to see what is required of you to be able to do payroll. Second option is what you already do, which is the 1099. So you can offer to give your assistant a 1099 at the end of the year, and they will go through the process of filing their taxes and all their pay stuff. Now, depending on where you are, that is something that I would recommend communicating with your candidates and let them know, hey, I'm either going to pay you a W-2 or pay you through payroll, or it's going to be a 1099. If they are a 1099, you need to forewarn them that you would be considered a subcontractor and that your taxes are going to be way different. So that is something that you would need to effectively communicate in the interview process. In whatever decision that you decide to make, the candidates will be able to make a decision whether or not they're okay with which method that you're using. Thing that I would recommend for you once you hire a tattoo assistant is iron out the documentation that you want them to sign. So a document that has your list of expectations, what it is that you expect of them to complete when they have their time here. And also like any benefit paperwork, if you are offering like maybe 401k matching or life insurance or, whatever it is. The second thing is, if you decide that you are going to want to pay with W-2, you will need to make sure that you have a W-4, which is for federal taxes. You will need to make sure you have your state taxes and then any city taxes that are applicable. So you would need to Google and make sure you're preparing that. So essentially the recommendations that I'm giving you right now is essentially what's called a new hire packet. This is a packet that you use to be able to have your candidates fill out on day one of their employment. So that way you have their information, emergency contact information, health benefits, if you've got that, any NDAs that you require them to sign, which that one's not really necessary, any sort of other documentation that you would want of them. So far, we have gone through what to do before you hire, what is a tattoo assistant, what a tattoo assistant can do for you, what skills to look for, how to pay your assistant, how to interview, and what kind of paperwork that you need to put in place the moment that your tattoo assistant is going to work for you on day one. The last part of this is training. And this one is the most crucial because from my experience and my point of view as a tattoo assistant myself, I have been forced in my own experience, and I know there's a lot of tattoo assistants that possibly could be listening right now that can vouch for this. I have been forced to figure it out. My tattoo artist could basically only show me their emails and scheduling, and I was forced to figure everything out myself. Now, this isn't a very effective model to follow because you are putting your business in the hands of your assistant. So if they are going to work with your bread and butter, for example, like your emails and scheduling, there needs to be more extensive training that is involved instead of trainings that are here and there. So this is what I'm going to recommend that you do. You know how earlier I had said that you need to get specific on your policies. One thing that I'm going to recommend is any documentation that you have your client sign, whether it be a waiver, a deposit contract, any consultation forms, whatever you have them sign, print those out and prepare them for your assistant because you are going to need your assistant to study them. Because they are going to, I promise you, they are going to end up knowing more about your process than you are. And that's exactly what you want because our hands are in the emails and we're constantly educating clients on the process. So that is something that I'm going to recommend that you do, which is why it's so important for you to iron out your policies. So that way, the more your assistant knows, the better they can help you. The second thing I'm going to recommend is print out a good example of an email conversation that you've had with a client that outlines the type of lingo that your assistant needs to understand, like what information to collect, what kind of information the assistant needs to educate the client on, what kind of paperwork that needs to be sent over, and so on. So that email that you print out is a good example for your assistant to keep as a guide to learn and understand the lingo. The third thing I would recommend is create a checklist. A checklist is something that your assistant can look as a guide to make sure they're getting all the information that you need. And if you are, let's say, for example, a realism artist, you need to put the specific styles that you do and whether or not you do black and gray, color, the size of the tattoo, placement, a brief description, budget, whatever information that you collect, create a checklist that outlines everything that your assistant needs to get from the client for you. So that way they can pass it over when it comes to the consultation. They can bring that information over to you to where you have it and ready to go, to where all you have to do is go into your consult and talk about the cost and all of that stuff. The third thing I would recommend is that you're going to need to schedule weekly trainings. I would recommend no less than 3 trainings per week for the first month. Now, month 2 and 3, I would recommend once a week until you both feel like your assistant has it. The other thing I'm going to recommend is don't just hand over your emails and schedule and let your assistant run with it. I would recommend 2 to 3 sittings of her sitting right next to you while you are doing emails so you can explain to your assistant, okay, this is what I need, this is how I do things, yada, yada, yada. Sit with them, be patient with them, let them learn from you for 2 to 3 good sittings. And then after that, if you feel like they understand it, let them take the reins, but switch the roles so you are sitting next to them for the next 2 to 3 rounds so you can see that they have absorbed the information that you're giving them. And then after you feel like they've gotten all of that, then you two can decide whether or not you want to move forward with more tasks or if you think that your assistant is ready. Because if you do consistent trainings each week for the first 3 months, your assistant is more than likely going to take over for you in those first 3 months versus if you were to do trainings here and there. And that can take up to 9 months for your assistant to feel confident in order to be able to take over. So if you want to get back to tattooing, the more consistent you are with your trainings, the better off you will be with your assistant taking over because they will feel more confident in doing so. Now, the last thing that I want to dive into real quick is where do I come in all of this? You have your training, which is step one. Your assistant needs to know anything and everything there needs to know about your business and how you operate, because that's going to help your assistant in the long run. What I require is that your assistant has been working with you for a minimum of 3 months. Once they reach that point, then I will bring them on to my masterclass, where I will level up their skills. I will teach them how to be a manager. I will teach them how to educate clients on your process. I will teach them how to keep integrity with how the business is running. I'm going to teach them how to be the authority over the schedule and instruct clients, hey, this is exactly what my artist has available. They can't tattoo on Saturdays. They tattoo on this, this, and this. I'm going to teach them how to effectively communicate with clients that's welcoming, helpful, direct, and gets more clients in the door, because at the end of the day, we have to do our due diligence and make sure that we can set our tattoo artists up for success. So that way they can give off amazing consultation, and that client it makes it a no-brainer for that client to want to book with our artists. So there's certain steps, certain keywords, certain actions that we're going to take to help level up our assistant skills so we can make it for a better experience. I'm also going to teach them how to set boundaries. This is a big one. Boundaries isn't something that we need every single day, but this is also one I'm going to help enforce when it comes to setting boundaries for their work and personal life. If you have clients that are difficult and refuse to work with your assistant, I am going to teach them how to educate and how to communicate boundaries in a way that lets clients know, hey, this is how this works. And in order for you to go through your art to the artist, you need to go through me first, and so on. And the last thing is I'm going to teach them how to make you look busy and in demand, because we all know when it comes to marketing that a client is going to be attracted to somebody else that's offering a service if they look and appear busy. Busy attracts busy. There's no reason why we can't convert that into our scheduling. So I am going to teach your assistant how to make you look busy to their advantage, so that way we can get clients to make decisions faster and get them in the door. Because at the end of the day, for example, if you've got a client that's got cash in hand and they are ready to move to the next steps, I'm going to teach your assistant how to get them taken care of immediately. So that way we're not being lenient on the schedule and saying, oh, you can come in whenever to schedule your deposit. That doesn't help, because clients get distracted and they never show up, and it could be 6 or 8 months down the road. So if they have cash in hand, there's no reason why we can't help and speed up the process to get them in the door faster. At the end of the day, when it comes to my masterclass, I'm teaching them more, giving them more clarity, and teaching them how to be the authority, how to be a manager, and how to take charge, so that way they can have confidence in their own abilities to know that they've got you, the business, and the clients at the end of the day. As a reminder, I'm including a few bonuses for you in the captions, so don't miss those. And if you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe, so that way you can be notified when the next episode hits, and I'll see you on the next episode.